All right, welcome back to Good Vibes. I'm Martin Falls, and it's time for Debbie Cox DeNova. She's going to talk to us about another topic, and it's a good one today. It's making a good first impression. Everybody wants to do that, but do they know how?
No, not everybody knows how.
Yeah.
And it's really important for us to put some attention on it because you only get one chance to make a first
Mm-hmm.
impression, and research does show that it matters. People actually do make judgments about other people based on their first impression. And not only that, but research shows that it sticks. So within the first few seconds, we're deciding whether someone is competent,
Mm-hmm.
confident, likable. And if we've decided that they are not within the first few seconds, it's very difficult to change their mind, even if you're funny, even if you connect well. So that first impression really is important. And they believe this is because it's a survival mechanism, right? To find out if
Mm-hmm.
someone is friend or foe. So there was a Princeton psychologist named Alex Todorov who did a study on research participants, and he showed them just a tenth of a second of a political candidate.
Mm-hmm.
And they were able to predict within 70% accuracy who was going to win the election just based on a split second of a video of that politician,
Mm-hmm.
which speaks to probably how we make judgment calls on someone. And not only can we make a good prediction about where they're going with it, but it also kind of speaks to how we choose politicians, right, on their
Mm-hmm.
likability cues. And so we want to make sure that we understand what first impression we have right now with people, and
Mm-hmm.
then also to manage it. So talking about it is a really important first step.
But you talk about politicians. We used to laugh as a group of guys
Hmm.
when one of them would try to go and make a good scene
Uh-huh.
with a woman, then come back to the table and go, I just blew it.
Yes.
Of course, we laugh, but you're right. It's the way you make the delivery.
That's it. And I mean, we can talk about a whole other show on hitting on people. That's a whole other thing too, which and likability and first impressions really go
Well, I
into
didn't
that as
put it like
well.
that, but now that you say it, Debbie.
It's a whole
All
other
right, there you
topic.
go. All right, good.
So the first thing we need to talk about is, and by the way, this information comes for those of you who love to do extra research on this from my favorite Vanessa Van Edwards, Science of People. So if you want more on how to give positive social cues and to make connections with people, definitely give her a look. She's written a few books, cues being one of them. Okay, so the first thing which she talks about is making a grand entrance into a room. So this is something that you want to think about before going into especially large gatherings where you're going to meet a number of different people. So conferences, networking events, and large parties. This is where people get a little bit tripped up about especially if you don't know a whole lot of people, about their coming into the game. But it's because we have so much trepidation about going in that our cues, or often our first impression, is not so great. So
Mm-hmm.
going into it, and if you want to take notes at home, the first thing you want to think about is walking with purpose. So when you walk into a room, walking with purpose. How do we get there? We decide beforehand what our first order of business is going to be walking into the party. So it can be as simple as finding the bathroom because you need to go to the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to hang up your coat, finding out where to hang the coat. If you want to say hello to the host, that can be the first order of business.
Mm-hmm.
Go to the bar, go to the food, whatever it is, you're going to decide ahead of time what your purpose in the room is so that you can walk with purpose coming in, right? We see these people who walk in like they own the room
Mm-hmm.
instead of walking in nervously and eyes are darting around and trying to figure out where everything is, which obviously sets a really bad. You got to think everyone else is there. They've already
Mm-hmm.
kind of settled themselves in. So they turn to the door and there you are. That would be their first impression of you.
Mm-hmm.
You want to know, okay, first order of business, I identify exactly where the bathroom is.
Mm-hmm.
And then I make it a point to nail that goal of going to the bathroom. Okay. That alone, just you walking in with purpose and actually finding something to do and going in, sets you apart from so many
Yeah.
people.
Own the room.
Own the room. And the way that you own the room is
Mm-hmm.
to plan for a purpose.
Okay.
Okay. Second thing is that you do a sweeping gaze. Okay. So again, we were talking about when you're nervous, what you tend to do is have a darting gaze. You're looking around, you're trying to figure out exactly where to go. We talked about how there's a cue of confidence where you're sweeping slowly the room.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're going to do this purposely. You may want to decide ahead of time, I'm going to go left to right or right to left. Okay, so if you decide left to right, you've walked in with purpose. And the first order of business is what? Find the bathroom, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I start from the left and I sweep across slowly. And she said extra bonus points if you can put a tranquil look on your face.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're sweeping across slowly, left to right. Okay, and then you find where your bathroom is. And then when you find that one thing that you're looking at,
Mm-hmm.
stop and have a purposeful gaze directly at whatever it is. So you're sweeping, you find the bathroom. and there's the bathroom, and then you go. Okay, so nice and calm, tranquil. While you're looking about, if you see a friend that you can
Yeah.
make eye contact with a friend so they know that you're coming, right?
Or wave.
Right, waving. That's we're about to get to that. That's a
Okay.
friendliness cue. Okay, so number 3, writing this down if you're taking notes. Now, number 3 is to signal, put friendly signal out there. Now, the science people analyzed 495 Shark Tank pitches. We know what Shark Tank is, right? It's the
Yep.
television show where you have an
I watch it
idea.
all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you have an idea, you have an invention, you're getting in front of investors, potential investors, and you're pitching your idea to see if you can get some funding. Okay. So they analyzed 495 of these pitches, and what they found is that the successful Shark Tank pitches were those that began with physical cues of friendliness. So what some of them did, they walked in really serious and said, "Good morning" or "Good afternoon, sharks. I have a wonderful idea." And they led with their competence. So the words that they were speaking were competent, but people look first, remember, at the cues, the physical cues. The nonverbals hold 12 to 13 times more importance and more influence than the verbal words that you're speaking with. So they would open with friendliness cues. So the open hand is a really big one. High fives, waves, hugs, those are all friendliness cues. Smiling, right? Those are all friendliness cues. And again, remember, if the survival mechanism is to determine whether you're friend or foe, this determines that you're a friend. Yeah.
They'd rather walk on hot coals than walk in a room.
Yeah. And the thing that we've talked about in research is that when you come in with that attitude, it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like, oh, no one's going to like me. Then you give off cues of being cold and withdrawn, and then people don't actually give you cues of liking you, and it sort of perpetuates this fear of going into new social situations. So we can actually remember that people are most likely they're going to like people who are interested in liking them. So if you're giving cues of being interested in other people, then they're more likely to like you as well. Now, during the break, you were talking about like pointing to people and going, "Hey,"
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so that's another cue that Vanessa Van Edwards says is really important, is to do these short, so again, if you're taking notes, it's called swift personal greetings. So you're walking through the room. Let's say you're going to the bathroom, right? And you recognize somebody that you see and you're like, "Hey, it's good to see you. Oh my gosh, I love that top." So you're kind of just really quickly making contact with people in a personalized way. So it's not an overall greeting, right? You're not giving everybody the same thing like, "Hi, hey, hello," right? It's actually like looking at them and going, "Hey, it's good to see you again. I just saw you in the bathroom," that kind of thing. And you're
Good to
moving
see you
through.
again. What's your name?
Exactly. But you're making that connection, and people love that.
You
That
know
is
who was the master?
who?
Edwin Edwards.
Yeah, really?
The master.
Really? Okay. So yeah, and politicians often are very good. I mean, that's part of the job, right? Is to be able to make contact with people and communicate. And part of communication is making sure that you're likable to them. Because if you're not likable, then anything you say afterward, as we just talked about, is almost lost because they've already developed and formed an opinion of you that is not favorable. Okay. So then the last one is, once you've gone through the grand entrance, you're now sparking conversation. And you want to make sure that you're not doing these automated, like, "So how are you?" Right? Because you're encouraging the other person to go, "Fine," right? Or so, "Good to see you. You too," right? So it kind of like encourages a boring conversation. You want to have sparking conversation. You want to say things that are going to actually spark some sort of like dialogue. And you can do this by using context cues. So that means that wherever you are, and there's always context, you can look about and you can start talking about something. It's a super safe way, right? It's like, so I see that the fish looks really good here. Have you had it? You know what I mean? So you're basically saying, "Oh, the decor in here is amazing. Is this your first time?" Right? So you're basically starting with, now she said, you can launch right into, "So tell me something interesting that you're doing lately, or a project that you're working on," if you're feeling super brave. But if you're feeling a little hesitant in it, that's a super safe way to go.
So if you're a man, don't walk up to the other man and say, "Your wife looks fantastic."
No, definitely not a
That's
likability
a deal
enhancer.
breaker.
It's definitely not a likability enhancer. So we want to make sure that the things that we're saying make the other person feel good about themselves and about you as well. Okay. So then we get into remembering that what we're talking about here is thin slicing. That means that people have a tendency, again, to make these snap judgments in a very short period of time. You do not have long to make a first impression. And what they're actually judging you on is often before you even say a word. So it is those nonverbal cues. They're thin slicing. They're deciding in microseconds. Are you somebody that I want to have close to me or away from me. So you want to make sure those cues are on task. If you're taking notes, next one is let's do a self-evaluation. How do you think you come across to somebody that you're just meeting? What is the first thing that you think that they think about you? And so I want you to write this on a piece of paper and actually think about it, okay? When people first meet me, they think I'm fill in the blank. And you want to use an adjective, just one word. When people first meet me, they think I'm, and is it funny? Is it kind? Is it boring? Is it standoffish? Whatever it is, write it down. Okay. So, because you can't manage what you don't like, what you don't monitor, right? Like, so if you don't know where you're starting, then how are you going to get to where you want? And then on that note, deciding next what you want, how you want to come across. What is your ideal first impression? So then I want you to write on a piece of paper because we're setting the intention. When people first meet me, I want them to see me as, and fill in the blank. Okay. When people first meet me, I want them to see me as, and use an adjective. Okay. Now you have an impression of how you want to come across. And then we're going to decide what kind of interactions you want to have whenever you go to a party. So again, right before you go to a big event, a conference, a networking event, a party, in the car while you're doing your makeup, whatever it is, decide for yourself, what kind of interactions do I want to have at this party and with what kind of people? So you're going to imagine that, and how do I want to come across to those people? You're deciding all of that beforehand so that you can come in with purpose and so that you can actually have a target to shoot for in these social interactions that have nothing to do with, oh my gosh, how am I gonna make myself look less awkward, right? Which is the wrong focus. So then you want to perfect your handshake. So research shows that people can tell a lot about your personality just from your handshake. So you want to make sure this is the first nonverbal touch point. This is where you're reaching out and you're going, "Hi, it's very nice to meet you." You want to perfect that. Make sure that's not one of those crushing. Yeah, I think men mostly do that. We talked about that.
Yeah.
Men mostly do that bone crushing
Going
kind
back
of.
to Edwin Edwards.
Right.
He had a crushing handshake.
Right. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like this dominating
good
thing.
to meet you.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And you don't want it to be soft and wimpy either, right?
Right.
You want it to be kind of nice and firm. And you want to make eye contact as you're shaking. The other thing is that you want to develop what she calls a launch stance. Now, your stance is more important than your posture. So you want to make sure that your chin is neutral, your shoulders are back and down, okay? You have a little gap between your torso and your arms. Your hands are visible and they're slightly expressive, and you're ready to sort of lean in and shake hands if you need to, or use hand gestures and be delightful in conversation.
All right. This was good stuff.
Yeah.
And I can't wait till next week where we have another one. Let's do the pickup line stuff. That'll be
Okay,
good. All right,
okay.
there you go. All right, we're going to be back next week, and Debbie's going to show you guys out there what to say and what not to say. We'll see you next week.